Remember when the Elden Ring gameplay trailer dropped for the first time and we all lost our collective minds over that one specific part? You can jump? You get a horse? You can fly? And what the fuck is that thing? Well, I want to take all of those questions and put them together to create a flying torrent riding a spirit spring up to a walking mausoleum. But before we begin, let's give a warm welcome to my good friend Dan, who is taking up the mantle of being the channel's new editor. Hi, Dan.
Oh, get up!
Whilst our walking Goliath and wee little Tarnished Torrent duo is printing away, I'll get cracking making a rocky terrain base for them. To start building out the ground, I need to cut some small pieces of XPS foam to size, which is made super easy and quick using a hot wire cutter. That is until...
Oh, of course it snaps. Can you hear that? Anyway.
Now I can get our base glued up and the foam shoved into place, and get it cut to shape going round the wood base with a knife, snipping off any excess foam. Then we'll fill the gaps with some aptly named gap filler. That is, of course, if I can get any out. Then I can just spread it around to get a nice smooth finish. And to undo the smooth finish, I'll take a lovely great big rock and smack it around to get some nice uneven terrain. I'll take some of the offcuts of foam that I chopped up and stick them on top, and these will be our happy little boulders. And with the boulders dotted around, I want to add a bit more damage to this foam and just rip some clumps out with a blade, which should give some added depth to the ground. And there's our basic block of a base, ready to get primed with some black. So now to get down and dirty and make some mud. To do so, I'll grab a little pot and some modelling paste. Then take some lovely laundry stain remover. Jokes, it's sand. You fools, it's always sand. Chuck in a bit of PVA for some extra stickiness and then dump in some brown. And then get it mixed up to create our big old mud pie. Then just slather that all over our base to get our dirt done. Now for some extra terrain goodies, I'll grab some ice cream. Got you again, it's rocks.
They're minerals.
And I'll grab some of this dirt path flock and start sprinkling it around to map out the areas that I don't want grass to be, and then start dropping in some of these ice cream rocks in the middle of it. Whilst our rock and dirt dries, I'll start painting up the boulders with a base of dark grey. And once the base has dried, I'll start adding some washes of ochre and umber tones to bring some natural variation to proceedings. With the lighter washes dried, I'll bring everything down with a black wash, making sure to dab up any excess with some cloth so that it doesn't pull or get too thick. This wash always helps bring every tone together down a bit and make it a bit more cohesive. Then with all the washes dried up, I can go back over everything with a slightly wider brush and dry brush on some progressively lighter shades of grey for our highlights, getting those raised edges really poppin'. Now for the part that makes anything look good, some static grass. First, get some basing glue popped down. Why am I so weak? I want to make sure I'm following where I mapped out those little mud areas with the dirt path flock so I don't cover everything in grass. I'll start with a 2mm layer of summer grass as the base layer, then move up to some longer 4mm darker autumnal grass, which will add some thickness and variation to the ground. I don't want to cover everything in this longer grass as I want to keep some areas shorter, but spread it around enough so that it doesn't look too uniform. Now with a complete base, I can pop it all to one side and turn my attention to the prints, which have just finished. We got our big boy here. Our big mausoleum scaled up quite big, so we just got to get him freed from support. Christ. Almost got me. Oh, that was a good one, that. I'm also using different resin now. Normally I use the sort of like standard polymer grey resin, but since Toby complained so much on the last video, oh, it's so brittle and I broke it 3 times. Oh.
Someone that prints miniatures for a living, he certainly made a very flimsy print.
I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to use some ABS-like resin, which is this stronger, more flexible stuff. You know what? I actually really like it. With all the supports clipped off our mausoleum, I can start filling in the multiple drain holes I made so as not to have any leftover resin stuck inside the model once printed. And to do this, I just use some Green Stuff World epoxy putty and just slap it down with a clay shaping tool. Now, the main reason I love this particular epoxy putty is that it makes me feel like I'm on Nickelodeon in the 90s, just getting into some slime business. Now, I found the mausoleums a frustrating thing in the game, and I thought what better way to take out any frustrations I have on this thing than by priming it with a big old knuckle sandwich. Bang. Bang. And with it primed, I'll start painting it up, getting the entire thing based with some dark grey. With the base on, I'll start dry brushing some lighter shades of greys to really get those rocky edges standing out from the rest. Same as the boulders on the base, I'll start adding some of the washes of umber and ochre to it to give some rocky goodness and tone it all down once more with some black wash. Now, I'm doing my best to keep this mat clean, so a little bit of kitchen roll will help catch any spillages.
One sheet!
I'll paint up the little tree brown before painting my little bell with some metallics. I have some mud pie left over from earlier which I can dot about on the ground level of the mausoleum and around the legs for some extra dirty knees. And same as before, I'll get some static grass plopped over the mud for a lovely little green flourish. And then the final little touch of green is to get some clump foliage scattered around the tree for some bushy leafage and also dotted around the dirty knees. Now, before we move on to making the exciting spirit jump, which I know you're all oh so excited to see, we need to paint our little tarnished rider, which I have here. This is, of course, yet another lovely little fella from the wonderful Realstone. Now, I'll leave a link in the description for both of these STLs so you can go and make your own one if you felt so inclined. With Torrent freed from its corporeal shackles of plastic imprisonment, I can get it primed with some off-white.
Missed it. Missed it. There it is. Oh god.
Now, since I have a lighter prime, I'll start basing the model with some contrast paints which react really well to lighter primes and gives us some cool contrast to work with. I'll do Torrent's fur with some dark grey, the saddle, the bridle and the leather parts with some dark leather brown, and the mane with some bone tone. For the Tarnished Rider, he's in the Raging Wolf set, so I'll get the cape based grey, the underside based with some lovely dark rich burgundy, and base the rest of the armour and the weapon with some dark iron metallic paint. Then it's on to highlighting everything, giving the leather some lighter browns, making sure any raised edges get the most of the lighter colour, giving the impression of light bouncing off the top and falling off lower down. And I'll use progressively lighter browns, mixing in yellow rather than white, to brighten it up but still keep that rich colour and not wash it out. Same goes for the cape. I'll use lighter and lighter shades of grey, targeting those centre points of the wrinkles and fading off into the darker recesses. Now, to be fair, I usually cut these bits out. Then it's just the little final touches of highlighting Torrent's skin and hair, and then I can move on to dry brushing on some final lighter silver tones to the metal armour, and we have ourselves a lovely little Tarnished Torrent combo. Now for the spirit jump. I need to open up my tab to check how things like, there we are. There's a lovely little spirit jump we can try and replicate. Whew. To do so, I'll get some armature wire and some cotton wool, and I'll wrap some of the thicker wire around a paint pot to give ourselves a coiled spring as our main shape.
How about a big Olympic hello for Springy?
Then with our lovely little springy, I can start tearing off little bits of cotton wool and start gluing them to the wire. As I glue them on, I'll pull them around a bit, making them look thinner and wispier, and try make it feel less like a sheep on an acid trip and more like a cloud in motion. And with our main spring done, I replicated that a bunch more times to create a mini army of mini cloud springs, which I can glue to the main coil to give some cloud offshoots. Now once the glue has dried, I can start pulling and prodding and tearing the wool a bit to give it a bit more of that wispy texture.
Bang. There's our beautiful base. It's actually quite cool for something that I was hoping was going to be quick and easy and, you know, relatively straightforward to get out. Looks nice. And then we have our flocked Mausoleum. And then obviously our El Torrente. Woo! Great. And lastly, we have our Spirit Jump, which has taken a little bit of reworking to kind of make it look half decent, and it's somewhere in between. So all we've got to do is get all these put together. What I've done for building and everything is I attached magnets to everything so that actually Torrent should just snap on like that, and there we go. So it kind of looks like it's riding the cloud, which is cool. Isn't that fun? And then if I stand it up, it stands up freely. Let's get our boy slapped into place. 1, 2. Well, with that then, it's pretty much done.
Well, thanks very much once again for joining me for another video. Everyone, go clap Dan for his help in this, as we all want him to keep going so we can get more uploads, don't we? Yes. Also, big thanks to my Patreon members. Things have been a tad slow as of late, as we've been getting this new way of working up and running, so I appreciate your support as always. We are looking like we're going to be hitting a good stride heading into the end of the year, and we've got some really exciting projects coming your way, so head on over to the Patreon and see what we've got coming up. But until then, don't you dare go hollow, and we'll see you next time.